At the Maxwell Football Club, I can say this now. Rodney was there getting the humanitarian award and pretty much told uh, myself and a few others that he wasn't going to be back. But he didn't want to make it public at that point.
Here on a football Monday, we got a couple of countdowns going on to the NFL draft, which is now just 17 days to the start of the season, to the day that the Eagles get their other starting safety. Johnny Mack, we know after this weekend, it is not going to be Rodney McLeod rejoining the Eagles' defensive backfield. He signs a deal with the Indianapolis Colts, so the Eagles are still on the lookout for their starting safety pairing for this upcoming year. We know Anthony Harris is back, but Rodney McLeod won't be after 6 really good years, including a championship here in Philadelphia. Why isn't Rodney McLeod an Eagle again?
I think, the plan the entire time was to sign one of the two starters from last year. So it kind of re-signed. They were both scheduled to be free agents, and the Eagles essentially decided on Anthony Harris. And look, at the beginning, I said McLeod was more likely to come back from Harris, but I give the Eagles a little credit. The reason I went in that direction is because of Rodney's, sort of leadership status on this team, what he means to the community off the field. On the field, Jonathan Gann is the defensive coordinator. He's more competent, more comfortable with Anthony Harris. He's a little bit younger, Anthony Harris, from that standpoint as well. So, from a football sense, it probably made more sense to keep Anthony Harris. And they kept Anthony Harris. I was a little surprised by that. And ultimately, at the Maxwell Football Club, I can say this now. Rodney was there getting the humanitarian award and pretty much told myself and a few others that he wasn't going to be back. But he didn't want to make it public at that point. But the Eagles, it was clear they made their decision. Anthony Harris was signed that day. So, never knew at the time if it was just emotional or something like that. But, it's ironic because those two are really good friends. They went to college together. Anthony Harris considers Rodney McLeod a bit of a mentor. So it's always difficult in the business of football. But they wanted one of them, and they didn't want both because they wanted to upgrade. And we'll see what they do in the draft. I think that's a logical position. Honey Badger's still out there. I think the Eagles will be involved in that if the market demands it and it comes down to where it's going to be 1 year and the numbers aren't outrageous. They would certainly consider bringing him in, but they wanted an upgrade and they wanted to keep one of them, and they made their decision. We'll see how it works out.
So you think it was a foregone conclusion because you just let us in on the reveal that you felt you needed to keep under your cap till now that it was going to be one or the other. There was no chance that both of these safeties were coming back to the Eagles, that they had to make a call to take one out of two and decided for that to be Anthony Harris, that that was something that they had predetermined.
Well, I think that was the plan. You never say never because for instance, if you went through the process and you sign Anthony Harris and you go through the draft and you don't get the player you want, or you don't get a player you think can be a starter as a rookie, Tyrann Mathieu isn't available. He goes to the Rams to go win a Super Bowl, something of that nature. And then you revisit after the draft. If Rodney McLeod didn't sign anywhere by that point, they probably would have considered bringing him back, but it wasn't the plan. So, but everybody's got plans in life. The Eagles are wide receiver. We talk about all the time. The plan was to get Calvin Ridley. The plan didn't work out for obvious reasons. The plan here was to bring one of the two back, and Rodney found another gig. So there's no safety net to come back to the situation after the draft. But if everything fell into those categories I just said, and you get no draft pick, you get no Mathau, you get no veteran safety, then they would have, revisited and said, well, let's bring back Rodney. But that wasn't the goal. The goal was to upgrade at least one of the two positions and then sort of save one position for some, consistency and Jonathan's just more comfortable with Anthony Harris, which is understandable.
Here's one of the questions I have about replacing Rodney McLeod. And I would love to give credit to who said, maybe you can remind me. I'm pretty sure he's here with us on Birds 365, not on one of my WIP shows, but it might have been. So I can't say for sure. Shame on me for not remembering who it was. They did point out that Rodney McLeod got better as the season went on. That he was a guy who was still recovering from an injury when the season got underway. Sometimes we kind of forget these things, that a guy was returning from an injury and wasn't up to 100% speed when the season started, but got actually healthy as the season went on. Usually we think of it as the other way, that players wear down over the course of the season, that Rodney might have been a guy who was actually getting better as the season went on, made the big play in week 16 against Washington, which helped them secure a playoff spot. That might be a real honest read on Rodney McLeod's last season. And if it is, then you have to judge his season accordingly. There was a drop-off in production. He wasn't the same player that he was on the Super Bowl team back in 2017, but he was a guy who was getting better. Do you think that his season was at all misleading this year?
No, because I think that was a little bit expected. I mean, he tore his ACL in December in the prior season, so 2020. So that's very late, obviously. And you remember, I think he missed the first 4 games this year, so he was, still rehabbing from the ACL. So it's sort of natural to not feel comfortable coming back from that injury. And as he got more comfortable as the season went on, he started playing a little bit better. Then it's the old chicken and the egg. The Eagles' schedule also got easier. They were playing bad quarterbacks. I think the biggest thing, though, is in June, I think, is Rodney. Rodney will turn 32. So, you know how this league, we talk about it all the time, especially defensive backs, 32, 2 torn ACLs. Remember, he tore his other ACL a couple of years prior. I think all of that factors into it. And, Anthony's been a little bit healthier as well, a little bit younger, as I said. And both were going to be cost effective. So the price wasn't going to be an issue with either. And they made a decision. They wanted to bring back one. They made their decision. I think Rodney can still play. We'll see if he earns a starting job in Indianapolis. But you 32-year-old guys in this league with an injury history, it's always going to be tough for them.
Here's where I can side with the Eagles if they got the evaluation right, that the player's skills were diminishing. The fact that he's a guy who's gone through a lot of injuries, that's just facts, and you need to factor that in your decision making. If you think that his level of play isn't what used to be, then you have to make a football call. You got to make a football decision, and the Eagles have, that they decided to go with Harris over Rodney McLeod at this time. I've seen a bunch of stuff on social media about how diligent a philanthropist that he was here in Philadelphia, and the great charity work that he's done, and the fact that he was committed to doing both great work on the field and off the field. And while I applaud it and salute him and would give my high five right here with us on Birds 365, that can't factor into your football decision. You have to purely leave it up to what can he give us on the field. You can appreciate him. You can appreciate the work that he's done and lend a helping hand if he is committed to keeping his foundation in place in Philadelphia here. You can't be affected by that. You have to make a football decision. And I give the Eagles credit for that. Oftentimes, they go a little bit longer with players who have been here, who have contributed, who have been part of the organization. That was not the case here, and I think it was a cold, harsh reality that they had to deal with. Do you think Rodney McLeod's got anything left in the tank? Is he going to help the Colts?
I think he's got something left in the tank. I think he can still play. I think he's probably better suited to be a rotational. Sort of at the end of the last season, the Eagles went to essentially a rotational type of situation where Rodney was used to his entire time here playing basically every single play, and he admitted it was a little bit difficult for him. When they started mixing Marcus Epps in, who's part of this as well, because the Eagles really like him as a coverage safety. Um, and if you have that third safety to rotate in, if you want to go with that sort of philosophy, and a lot of teams don't. And a lot of teams consider that as a non-rotational position. I'm not sure if he can play every single snap at this stage of his career, but yeah, he can still play. I mean, and Frank Reich obviously knows him very well, and we'll see how it works out. I don't know the situation with Indianapolis at safety. I know they were kicking the tires on Honey Badger as well. They were one of the teams in that, so they're obviously looking for a safety. So he should be able to help. But if you're looking for Rodney McLeod at his apex, that's probably not going to happen anymore.
Fair enough. What does the year 2016 mean to the Philadelphia Eagles after this weekend, John? There's a dual significance to that year.
After this weekend, that's Doug's first year. I don't know where you're going.
I'll fill in the blanks for you. 2016 was the year Rodney McLeod joined the Philadelphia Eagles. And 2016 was the last year that the latest Eagles signing actually played football. That Devon Allen, a wide receiver, former Oregon Duck,
I should have got
signed with the Eagles this year. Nothing like signing a guy who hasn't played football in 6 years, John. Give us the background on this free agent signing, undrafted free agent signing.
Well, Devon is an Olympian, so he sort of made a decision. He played at Oregon as a wide receiver. Yeah, it was a pretty decent deep threat, I think, in 2014, which was the year after Chip Kelly left Oregon to come to Philadelphia. And then he sort of made a decision, if you want to be an Olympic sprinter, you can't, well, in his case, hurdles, 110-meter hurdles, you can't sort of go all in on both. So he went more in that direction, and he made 2 Olympics. I think he finished 5th and then 4th. So he's, high level hurdle, 110-meter guys. So, and now he's 27, and he decided, well, if I'm going to try it, I gotta try it now, because you're going to age out pretty quickly and people aren't going to consider it. So he went and he showed up at Oregon Pro Day, and he ran, I think, a 4.35. So you know how people in this league feel about speed, Jody. And this is a kid that can catch the football. I mean, he's played football before. He's not just a track guy trying to play football. So I think it's a worthy roll of the dice. But yeah, I think a lot of people saw this signing and thought that the Eagles are trying to, make him into a contributor this season. I think this is their classic, if you want to go to Jordan Mailata, would be the biggest example of a developmental prospect, Tyree Jackson. But this is sort of like Brett Toth, when they signed Brett Toth coming back from the Army. Same type of thing. That happened in August, though, because at the time, I hate to bring up this name, but at the time the president was Donald Trump, and he changed the rules for service members, in that they could have a deferral and if they had a chance to play professional sports. And the Eagles brought in Brett Toth because they liked him as a prospect, and the plan was to get him on the practice squad and help him develop, and hopefully turned into a player. Same thing here. Eagles got a guy can run. They're obsessed with speed, can catch the football a little bit. But yeah, they're not it. People took this as they're signing him to be a receiver because they need an upgraded receiver, which they still do. This is just a developmental project. And yeah, why not? I mean, the guy can run by everybody. And I always laugh at Tyreek Hill because he's been doing it for years, uh, joking about he'd be able to beat Usain Bolt in a race. No, you wouldn't. You couldn't even beat Micah Parsons. You can't beat high level Olympic track stars. This guy can really run. So roll the dice.
It's a little bit of a lottery ticket play.
Yeah.
If you cash it, it's great. If you don't, it's no great loss. Be interesting to see how much, if there was a couple teams interested in him, did the Eagles have to put in for guaranteed money, standard 3-year deal for undrafted free agents. It all comes down to how much the guarantee is. But if he's at an age where you can't take forever to bring him along. When they drafted Jordan Mailata, they knew they had years before they were going to have to call on him and put him into game. It's going to be a little quicker here, but they have all of training camp and probable practice time squad to continue to evaluate the guy. But I just thought it was a very interesting story. Signing a guy who hasn't played football in 6 years.
Yeah, well, that went over. That part went over well. Went over like a lead balloon. But that, those people they think he's here to, play immediately. He's not. But you're right. The time has to be, the clock has to be sped up a little bit. So my thought there would be they would want, a year on the practice squad. And hopefully by next year, if he gets, sort of knocks the rust off, who knows, let him run by people and see what happens. Of course, they already have that with Quez Watkins, but I digress.
Yeah, good. But Quez, they're already leaning on. This would be a down the road proposition. All right, John McMullen, Jody McDonald, your Mac guys here on Birds 365. The countdown to the draft is on. We're just over 2 weeks away. What will the Eagles be doing? How's the first round going to shake out? We're going to do some NFL draft guests over the next however many shows before we get to day one of the NFL draft, including coming up next. Russ Brown is a guy I got to know over the last several weeks. Someone booked him for my show on CBS Sports Radio, came on, did a heck of a job breaking down the draft for us. We will punch him up next here on Birds 365.